Welcome to Junkyard Theory, folks. Today we got somebody who, it's not always that you get people from every single department in the spotlight, and we've never ever had someone who deals with hair on the show before. So she has the honor of being the very first hairstylist on Junkyard Theory. I'm super excited to have Linda Flowers on the show. Ma'am, welcome and thank you for joining us.
I'm excited to be here, and I'm really excited to be your first hair person.
Always a first for everything, and I have all the hairy questions in store for you. Linda, but I want to go back to the beginning. This, like I said, this department, hairstyling, it's not something that gets talked about a lot. It's something that kind of gets, looked over, but there's so much nuance and detail in what you guys do. So
Oh,
before we come to that, I just want to talk a little bit about where you come from. What's your origin story?
okay. Well, I was born in Japan. I'm half Japanese. My mother's Japanese. My father's American. He went to Japan after the war, and so I'm an Air Force brat. And we moved around quite a bit when I was growing up. Canada, Washington, Colorado, and then last to Missouri, where my father is originally from Missouri. So when he
I
reached
should have started this interview with Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa, Ohio gozaimasu.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
but
That's amazing.
I don't look Japanese, but uh, so and then I actually started doing hair in Springfield, Missouri. I worked in a salon for many, many years. I did a lot of hair shows, a lot of education. Um, I I actually um, my first music video I ever did in my life was with Johnny Cash. Because it's close to Branson, which I'm not really a country fan. It's not really my thing. But at one point, they had a lot of the biggest country western stars there, and so my first, literally green as can be, right in the salon, Johnny Cash. And I remember walking in to see him, and he was old then too. And I walked in, and his hair was violet, like a violet blue. Because remember when those old ladies with white hair used to try to dye their hair and it had that
Yeah, yeah,
purple?
yeah.
And I walked in, and I went, oh no, what am I going to do with that? It's Johnny Cash. So I did what anybody would do. I did nothing. I figured if he showed up like that, if, and he just looked at me and he goes, I just need a little concealer because I did hair and makeup back then. He goes, I just need a little concealer and just maybe a little bit more hairspray and I'm good. I said, I was green. I didn't, very green. And I said, okay. And that's exactly what I did. And then from there, I was doing some platform work in Kansas City, and I had a makeup artist liked my show, and we kind of knew each other, but that's when I used to travel with a group and do hair shows all over the United States. I'd travel with a choreographer, a lighting crew, and the companies would just give me a budget, and I would create my own shows basically, and they did quite well. And so he asked me to come and to a film he was on, and he goes, "Hey, do you just want to come and visit and see what this is like?" So I said, "Sure." So I went there, and the girl who was the hair department head, and I'll get into what that job title is. And because we were in the middle of the desert doing a western, and they didn't have enough hairstylists, and it was non-union. So she goes, "Do you want to jump in, Linda?" So I jumped in, and I swear I have 9 lives. You know, I people ask me like, what is the formula for success? And I think, well, it has to be talent, has to be a lot of it, and luck and timing, being in the right place at time, and just having some good old fashioned good luck. Because the lead actor on that movie liked what I was doing, and he requested me for 5 years as a personal. So most people, they do all these little low budget things and they're struggling to get hours and trying to get in the union. But, bam, there I was. And so I think that helped me excel very quickly. Um, I did have my struggles. I did do a lot of non union projects, but, eventually I got into the bigger projects and I got really high profile clients. So, like I said, I'm so lucky. I speak a lot at schools and cosmetology schools and different places, and they always want to go, "How do I do what you do?" And I go, I tell them it's that three combination. You got to have talent. You got to be able to back up what you do. Luck, knock on wood, and the other one is timing. Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time.
Well, that's very true because you might have all the talent in the world, and without luck, if you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, you don't have the exposure. There's so many talented people out there, but they just don't get the exposure that, and will, because I willed myself, because after I started doing a few projects, I moved to California. And the person that hired me for that movie, the hairdresser, she told me I could stay with her and my makeup friend, because they were roommates back then. They lived in Hollywood, and Dean had a really big office, and he goes, "You can stay here." So he cleared out the office. I bought a futon, and I literally stayed there for half a year until I got a TV series in Hawaii, and then I left for 3 months to work in Hawaii, and then I came back, and then I just never stopped. And
You worked on some pretty high profile stuff from Hunger Games to Iron Man 2, several installments in the Fast and Furious franchise, although there's not a
yeah.
lot of hair on, on those movies.
But you know what? You'd be surprised, because first of all, the hair is this. And so it's on
True, true.
the face, and this gets a close up every
Mm,
single scene. It's like some departments don't get close ups. The props and even set dressing, even these beautiful sets, you see them, but eventually they come down to the face.
to the
And
face.
that
That's
and
right.
the actor cares about that, because that's when they know that they're being looked at the most closely. Because when you're in a room with people talking, but then when you zoom in on their face, they want it to be perfect. And I feel, for me, even though some shows may seem like the hair is normal or just contemporary, but for me, I feel like the actor's job is to tell the writer's story. My job is to tell the character story. And I do that through visual aid and color and shape, which is the hair. And just to be, just to simplify it. Sometimes you think they're scripted, like he's like a really greasy character, like he's a really sly dog or something, and then you automatically think, well, I'm going to slick his hair back and make it a little greasy. That's kind of generic, but and that's not what you should do. But you immediately take a character and you read about it, and you talk to the director about them, and then you figure out, how can I best make the audience see what they think the character might be without any words. The minute they come on screen, you're going to have an opinion. Like when you and I got on the screen together, we both had an opinion of each other immediately. I immediately thought, you're very handsome and you're very smart.
Thank you. I got
How's
to
that?
really love you.
But
Beautiful. There you go.
but you do. So you got to tell them their story very, very quickly. And sometimes hair can do that. Like if you make somebody with like really bleached out hair with dark rooting, you kind of think, that person's kind of edgy, or whatever. You see, the so-called soccer mom, their hair might be on a cute little pixie cutter bob, and you think, oh, she's the nice lady next door. So uh, you're definitely part of the story. You just have to figure out each character, how you're going to tell their story. So there's a lot more to just doing hair. And even if something's very simple, I have to make sure it will tell the story of who that person is. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot. It takes talking to the director, talking to the producers, talking to the actors, talking to the costume designers, talking to makeup, and you guys all together come up. I give my feedback, everybody gives their feedback, and together we form a character.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a very intricate process, and there's a lot that goes into it without the audience necessarily realizing it. But
Yeah.
like you very correctly said, the moment these characters pop up on screen, you already have an idea about what they are communicating
Yeah. Yeah.
non-verbally.
By
How
how
much?
they're dressed, how they look, how they wear their makeup, what kind of car they drive. Where all that is to tell their story. It's to
How much research goes into this?
Well, it depends on the period. Actually, more than you think. Um, because even with hair, there's certain shapes of the hair, like You can make your hair look like everybody else, like a beachy wave, or if you're trying, like I have a lot of older clients, like Glenn Close. And she usually wears shorter hair because of her age. But with her, I can, if she wants to come like a real tough character, she might want something really sharp with a lot of angles, or if she wants to appear very soft and vulnerable, it might be longer, rounder shapes. So, and so you have to kind of understand what shapes do to the eye, and what that shape will make you feel, along with color, because color will do the same thing. You can turn somebody into a redhead, and it's going to make you feel differently than if they're a bleach blonde or a brunette. So all that comes into play, and so you just have to kind of know your stuff, and know that, because some of the younger people that I work with, they come in like, oh, I'm just going to do a blow dry, that's going to be pretty, and then they kind of look like some magazine cover, or or something. I think, well, I don't think that really tells her story of her character, because it's different. You're not here just like to make somebody look pretty. You're here to tell their story, and that's one thing that I'm trying to help with the younger generation, is make them understand, because we have such talented young people coming into the business, and they're all hip, and they've got the tattoos and the nose rings, and they're just they're and the people, the actors, I think, oh, you're cool, you're going to make me be cool and all that. But they do great work, but they haven't stepped to that level of designing a character, and that just takes time.
I like that term you used, designing a character.
Mhm.
And hair certainly, like you said, this itself is hair.
Yeah,
And even if you might not necessarily have like a glammed up hairdo or whatever, even if it's
yeah.
just facial hair, that too tells a story.
Yes, 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 it
Kind of like
does. It does.
let go, or like
And
what
even the
point
shape of
yeah.
your facial hair can tell a story, and even the color, can
Give me a few examples because I'm
yeah.
curious to know more about this now.
Yeah, it would be a whole podcast, because there's a lot to design. It's one thing to just do somebody well, but it's something to be able to design a character that's going to fit into place with the story, and the story of the character, and then you have to figure out how it's going to progress with them. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Yeah,
there's a lot to think. You just don't walk in and start blow drying somebody's hair. There's a lot to designing, and that's why my title is hair designer. It's because I actually do design hair, but I also department head, which means I run the whole department. Like, they give me a budget, and I hire the staff. I do all the ordering. I do all the budgeting for it, and I have to, within that, I have to just run. You just kind of run a little business in your department of, you know and you have people, you have to, you have people you have to answer to, like producers. If you're spending too much money, they will come to you. And if they're
true.
not seeing, but if you're spending a lot of money and they see the results on the screen, they're not so grumpy. But if they're spending a lot of money and they're not seeing the results on the screen, you're going to get a phone call or a visit. It's a bit, in the end, it's a business. And in the end, it all comes down to money.
That's something that doesn't really get taught in film schools, until
Yeah.
you really uh, venture out to do stuff on your own in the industry. So, as makeup, the head of the department, talk me a bit about the problems, like the unique problems that you face in this particular department that you probably would not in others, and how do you navigate them?
In the hair department, it's really, well, just, with everything else, costumes, makeup, that all can go away and be washed away, but hair doesn't get washed away. It's on your head. So it tells a story 24/7. So that's one of the challenges. For every frame, you have to make sure you're on point with the story, because they might change their clothes. They might, I might even change the hairstyle, but it never, once you make a decision on you're going to wear brown hair in this cut, unless you're going to tell a story of time and the hair progresses and they're changing the character through the story. That's kind of what you're married to, where they can change your costume. They can put you in jeans, they can put you in a gown, or they can put you in a glamour makeup, or they can put you in a natural makeup. Those things come and go, as well. But and those can each tell a story. But my story is permanent, even though I can adjust it with styles. So that's one thing you always have to be very careful that you make the right choice. Because if you make a bad choice with a costume, you can get rid of it. Somehow you can write it in where that person's going to go home and change, or they're going to go in the bathroom and change, or I've seen that happen before, you know, or makeup they can, just, so it's you have to be you have to just make sure what you're committing to, because it's a final commitment where other things can be adjusted a little bit more. I mean, you can write in the story that they get a haircut or get their hair color, but then you're changing the script to accommodate that. Do you know what I mean? So,
How often does that happen, though? The reverse process where the script kind of changes around the hair. Have there been any instances where you come up with something that the director's like, okay, you know what, like let's go ahead with this and change everything else that comes in
oh yeah,
afterwards?
yeah. No, I've done it once. I did a movie with Tom Hanks years ago, and he starts out as this kind of frumpy man that is all alone, and he um, he meets Julia Roberts and is trying to get hip in a little movie he wrote and directed many years ago. Called Larry Crown. And so they wanted him to have that kind of frumpy hairstyle. So I wigged him so that when he was his hot self, I could just take the wig off and give him a fun haircut. Well, his producing partner was not used to seeing him in a wig, and he was very uncomfortable with Tom wearing a wig. I was like, well, I don't know if we want to wear wigs, even though it was a beautiful custom, $15,000 wig that was hand tied. It's just the producer just and it looked frumpy. It wasn't handsome because he wasn't supposed to be handsome. He's supposed to. The whole story was about his makeover, his progression, and his growth. And so you have to start at the bottom to get to the top. And he was kind of wanting to start in the middle. Like, oh, well, it's not going to be that extreme of a story. It's not going to be as extreme of an impact. He's going to go, oh, he looks pretty good now. He looks great. But when they look really bad and they go to really good, it's a little bit more of a punch. And we kind of went back and forth. And, in the end, they win because they are the producers and I'm just there to accommodate, to do what they want. And so it was supposed to be a little bit before halfway through the story where he got his makeover, and they shifted the whole script to make it earlier because that producer just could not handle seeing him in a wig.
He wanted to be done with all those scenes.
He goes, oh, and then when we finally took it off, he's like, oh, there he is. There's my Tom. So yeah, no, it's happened several times. But that's just one incident.
You mentioned wigs. Now this is something that's kind of fascinated me, especially with the Marvel movies. I didn't necessarily realize that most of these actors were wearing wigs until I think I saw one of them in a makeup show. I think it was Benedict Cumberbatch in
Oh
Doctor
yeah,
Strange.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because like
They,
the wigs
they,
are
they,
really good. They're amazing.
Yeah, they all wear wigs or something. They all wear something. A lot of it too is because you gotta remember those 4 or 5 month movies, and you get your hair done every day, and sometimes you have to get it done again after lunch, and it's a lot of wear and tear on the hair. So a lot of actresses will wear wigs that just look like their own hair. So then you beat up the wig and not them. And they take the wig off at night, and you can style it, and they can go home. They don't just sit in your chair forever for you to style their hair every morning. It's already styled when they come in. You just have to put a wig wrap on them and then put the wig on. And then that way, their time in the chair is literally a fourth of the time. Something that might take an hour. They come in wet and you blow dry and curl, blah, blah, blah. That's an hour and 20 minutes. You come in and get a wig, that's, 30 minutes max. So with me anyway, I don't know what other people, but so a lot of them just like to do it for that reason. Melissa McCarthy always
Yeah.
wears wigs. Glenn Close almost always wears wigs. Whenever Jennifer Aniston wants to wear a wig, she calls me. Um, I do a lot of wigs. Woody Harrelson, whenever I help him with his wigs. If I can't do it, sometimes I'll just make sure it gets made well, and some because he's very vegan. You can't put a lot of product on, like the adhesives and stuff. He doesn't like them, but so he's kind of tricky with wigs. But because it's just easier and it's faster. Unless not, if you're not a good wig person, though, you can ruin the movie, and then everything falls apart because everybody's not happy, and they have to do so much correction in post to make it look good, and that can
Yeah.
cost thousands of dollars. So they'd rather hire a good wig person and buy a good wig than have to spend 10 times as much on the back end. So
Yeah. Hair is not something that's very easy to simulate even in CGI. So
no, I
always,
I bet.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
there is no fixing it in post.
Well, they fixed several things in post. You know, if you get a bad wig and the hairline looks funky, they fix that. There's I've heard horror stories where they've had to like replace 280 hairline replacements in a movie, and um,
Wow,
yeah. So
goodness.
yeah. So it's tricky, and the art of and I do a lot of wigs, lots of wigs, and because I kind of took that on as a specialty, and that's definitely kept me working. You know.
What do you prefer though? Do you prefer working on real hair or wigs? I mean, like you said, it's probably gotten you work, but authenticity versus creating something that's synthetic. What do you go with? What would you go with?
No, it's not that I prefer wigs. It's just usually when there's wigs involved, it's because you're designing the character. Like
Hmm.
if it's just like a contemporary show where with a bunch of people running around, then you're kind of gonna probably either maybe just blow dry, put a few extensions in, maybe make sure their color's right. But when you get into wigs, unless people are just trying to protect their hair, like Nicole Kidman almost always wears wigs because she's got really difficult hair, and you can blow dry, but the amount of heat they'd have to keep on her hair to keep it looking good through a movie would just trash her hair. So she always wears wigs. It's just usually there's a little bit of a character involved. So you can make somebody you can when you do a wig, you can give somebody the hair that they always dreamed of, or you can make them a redhead that's curly when they got fine brown hair. So you can really change and transformation is more dramatic
Transformable.
than a wig, and that's why I prefer them. It's not that they're more fun to work with or anything. It's just that
It
the
just serves the purpose
level
of the story
I
better.
can go to is more open, and usually that's why you're doing the wig.
Gotcha, gotcha. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Mhm.
What unique frustrations do you have, working in an industry like this?
I think it's getting harder and harder. Like with the strike, the studios before the studios were all film people that ran them. Now it's all corporations that own them, and there are literally people that are making huge decisions for the crew that have never even worked on a movie. And so you're going uphill a lot with things. They want to pay you less, want you to work more. They keep chipping away at what you're making and doing and the hours. And so that I think is my biggest frustration because, theater people film and television theater people, um, where they tend to be a little bit more creative, even though when you're, I mean, when you're working on a $300 million movie, that's a big business. There's the producers have to be smart. You have budgets. Like I have a budget, because in the end, it's all about the money. So you have to spend money to get a good product, and they just they expect you. They hire people that are good because they know that you can pull it out of your back end. Excuse and you're not going to drop the ball because of your reputation. So they kind of put you in a corner of going, well, this is all we have, and you have to do this. So it forces you to have to work so much harder and do things that you used to do. When they just give you a little bit more money, you don't have to do that. So but they hire good people because they know you're not gonna drop the ball, so I feel like they're kind of manipulating us a bit. That's probably one of my biggest frustrations.
I guess that happens in any business eventually, right? Like you stay long enough, you meet all kinds of people from across the board,
Yeah,
and there's always never enough time, never enough money.
yeah, yeah, and I really, fight for hairdressers. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm in the academy, but I'm also the hair governor, and there's only one hair governor in the world, and I have the voice of for hairdressers as a governor in the academy. In our branch, it's two makeup and two hair. It's only one hair. So hair has to fight twice as hard because you've got two people. We all work together though. I mean, but it's just like they've got two voices and I only have one. So I tell people I have to be a strong voice, not a loud voice, but a strong voice. And I have to surround myself with as many good hairdressers as I can to get some of these things voted on. And, but uh, and I worked my way up. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I started out low budget, movies, just happy to be on a set. I just worked my way up. Tenacity, luck, right place, right time, doing the right person that sees your hair. Being a I got Jennifer Aniston as a client because I was on a movie she was on. And I was doing her ex-husband now, Justin Theroux's hair, and I wigged him, and the wig was so good and so beautiful. Like everybody was just couldn't believe he was wearing a wig because it looked like him. And so, cut to 2 years later, I get a phone call from her going, "I love the way you did Justin's wig. Will you come to a movie and do mine?" So it's you have to have the talent to back it up. But it was again, I was in the right place at the right time. I was on a movie she was doing somebody else. I've like I said, I've been really lucky, but I've also I don't back down from anything. Like I've been in movies with, I mean, I've been in meetings with some very high profile directors and producers, some of the biggest in the world actually, and I don't back down from my opinion. I will do exactly what they asked me to do because that's why they hired me. And I will do everything I can to fulfill their vision. But when I feel like they're making a wrong design choice, which, they've got so many things on their plate, why do you want to jump on my ship and tell me how to row this boat when why don't you just get off the boat, let me row you were the big you were the you row the big battleship. I'm just going to row this
Yeah.
little boat, but I promise you I won't lag behind and you won't be sorry.
For somebody who's just starting out, like you did back then, doing indie movies and all of that, building that repertoire of work up until you get your proper big break, what would you tell people to kind of focus on?
Oh, that's tricky because you just have to really work your craft out because your work is what's going to make people notice you. I remember back when I was just starting out, I'd been in it just a little while, but I was not really departing any much. But I was being brought on as with the main cast and being in the trailer, but I wasn't like the designer. And I would have the designers walk in the room with these big background days and go, "Who did that hair over there?" It'd be me, like, "Oh, who did that one over there?" And so they weren't all me, but most of the ones she pointed out were my work. And then after that, uh, like a couple years later, or maybe a year later, she called and asked me if I wanted to do a show with her because I guess her people, none of the people she used to work with were available, and she liked my work. And so again, it's your work. Your work is always going to be the thing that stands out, and also your integrity and your work ethic. But also, you have to be a good person. Nobody wants to be in a trailer 14 hours a day, 6 months with someone who's awful. And there are some of those out there in any business. They're grumpy, they're that. And even though I'm tired and I just, I've worked a 14-hour day and I didn't get enough sleep and I'm tired, I still make it my motto to come in to appear to be happy and to always be kind, even though we've all been everybody's patience has been tested in this industry because sometimes you just get so tired when you're doing these brutally long days and you've got all these. I remember when we were doing these massive background days on the Hunger Games, I was getting 4 hours of sleep a day for about 8 days. And I swear I had this fog in my head and I got to where I wasn't thinking clear. And I remember a few times I snapped. I'm never brutally mean, but I might have just I might have just snapped a little bit, like been a little snappy. And they just look at me like, "You need to get some rest." I go, "I think you're right. I do. I'm sorry." So I tell people this business will bring out the best in you because it'll make you rise to the equation or you will get booted out. And it brings out the worst in you because sometimes it tests your everything from being able to work with sleep deprivation, being able to, work with, really, really difficult actors, dealing with a really difficult director. So it'll bring out the best in you and the worst in you. And yeah. And I try to treat every movie, big and small, like I'm going to the Super Bowl and I want to win that Super Bowl. And do I want to sit on the bench or do I want to be one of the main players? And I want to be one of the main players because some people come to the set. Some people you hire, they're okay sitting on the bench. They're happy to work, but they're never going to put forward like 10. time, 500%. And then there are those that are competitive, like they're gunning for your job. They're sitting there going, I want to be the quarterback today, and so you're constantly dealing with so many personalities and just trying to juggle all that. If it was just about doing hair, it'd be the easiest thing in the world. That's really about number 10 on the list. But when you do that number 10, you better be good because nothing backs you up like your work ever. And I tell people, I told my two nieces that one's in the business, the other I'm getting the business. I looked at them, the first show I ever brought my first niece on, and I said, do not let anybody outwork you on this show. Not nobody outworks you on the show. Got it? They're like,
Always.
I
That's a good motto to have because always strive to be the hardest worker in the room, and I
yeah,
think that work ethic will definitely snowball into bringing you better
yeah.
opportunities and
Because
also
this,
making yourself
yes,
creative.
because this work is so hard because everything and mostly the hours. The hours is what makes it really difficult because when you're working 14, 16-hour days, you are so tired. When you get a 9-hour turnaround where you have to go home, sleep, shower, get ready, and be back at work in 9 hours, that means you're probably getting 6 hours of sleep if you're lucky. So you've gotta be in shape. It's like to really be able to come in I mean, because otherwise you're tired, you're grumpy, you're lethargic, you're not on point. So, I spoil myself. I get a massage once a week when I'm doing a hard project. I make sure I eat the right foods. I'm not eating a lot of junk and sugar because then my blood sugar is going like this, which, I'm thinking I've got to make a 16. I'm running this race and it's a 16-hour day and I don't want to peter out at 8. And so I have to eat accordingly. That doesn't mean I don't break down and eat cookies occasionally, or something, but I really watch my sugar and I really watch my junk food. And I try not to eat a lot at night. When you're working nights, it's really difficult because your whole system has to change. You're working all of a sudden you're working nights for a week where you go in at 7 and you get off at 7 in the morning. So your whole system's really off balance. And I've learned you have to just eat gentle foods, not heavy foods when you do that. Otherwise, you're like it hits you like a ton of bricks, and it's so there's a lot to being a competitor in this business and even in your department.
I really love what you spoke about, taking care of yourself because that's something that goes, that gets overlooked a lot in this industry. Working long hours, like you said,
Mhm.
probably like the last thing on your mind is like taking care of yourself. Am I sleeping enough?
Yeah, and that's when I
Because
take care of myself the most because I know that's when I can't break down because I'm the captain of my ship in my department. If I break down, everything will break down. You
is that
know,
something you kind of came to the realization too after maybe a mishap or two, or was that something that you had in your mind from the start? And how did you like? Because this requires a lot of discipline, right? It's not the easiest thing to do.
no, it requires a lot of discipline, but I'm a competitive person by nature, but I'm not a mean competitor. I like to consider myself a fair competitor, but if you back me in a corner, I'm going to come out punching. I'm not a wallflower, but I'm not really loud. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you walk in a room, I'm probably not the first person you'll notice, but eventually, you know, you'll notice me. I don't need to be the center of attention. I don't need all that. I just want to be the best I can be. I'm
I'm
not
just
sure I
gonna.
answered your question.
You did. I'm just like trying to process all this because I did
Also,
not.
too, I was a martial arts competitor for many years. I studied martial arts for 30 years.
That's now okay. There we go. That's the hidden.
Yeah, and I have
That's
to
the
tell you, it
reason.
really helped me out because, for one thing, when I got in the business, I was in really good shape, and I
Hmm.
I was still competing on a
What did
national
you
level
practice?
and or an international level, and I
What did
always
you? What art form did you practice?
I'm a third degree black belt in Taekwondo, but I
Taekwondo.
also studied Kung Fu, Eskrima. I studied Western boxing with a boxing coach. I actually boxed professionally for a short time.
Really?
Yes, and
Ah,
I fought. I did competitive martial arts, kickboxing for a short time. Um,
amazing.
and I did pretty well because I had come up through I started when I was 17, and so when by the time I was in my late 20s, I had many years behind me, and I did the competition circuit, just like the karate circuit where you're going to tournaments. I did all that for many, many, many years, and I was ranked number one for many, many years. So I always had this competitive edge, but it's so funny because I'm so mellow and I hate violence, and people would see me in the ring, and I'd be like, I, you get in that ring, either you're going to get knocked out or they're going to get knocked out, and I prefer it to be them. I've almost been knocked out. It's not fun. Um, but what that did for me, and I kind of started to get out of all that when I got in the film business, because I got in the film business very late. I stopped competing when I was 35, and I got in the film business when I was 35 or 34. So, because that fighting's a young sport. Your body can only take so much. I did it for so many years. And I taught a lot, and I've had students that were international champions. But one of the things that it taught me is to deal with energy. There's like soft style and hard style in martial arts, as you probably, I don't know how familiar you are. But like they said, Muhammad Ali was the king of soft style because he could move around people where their energy could never take him down. And then, he'd move with them. And Bruce Lee said he was a soft style expert. So I've learned from training for so many years, if you have to switch back and forth, like, are you going to be soft style with this person? They're coming at you really strong. Do you want to like and beat each other up and get hurt? Or as they're coming like this, do you want to kind of move around them and move around them and move around them and kind of start to diffuse that energy where when you do strike, you have more power because you're just, over and over and over, you're going to get tired. You're going to be hurt. So you have to know when to move around somebody, and then you have to know when to stand your ground and throw punches. And I really honestly think that knowledge helped me when I first got into this because, like I said, you've got to dance around so many people. You've got difficult actors because anytime you work with somebody's looks, they're going to be picky. And if it's not perfect, they're going to come to you and go and just express that they're not happy. And you could lose your job. The studios look at every footage, so they're going to call and go, we don't like their hair, who's doing that, and so you constantly have to be on point, but you constantly have to meet with these people and sometimes battle with them, not in a mean way, not like a fight, but that's why I say I don't back down from what I think is uh, sorry, my dog is old and sick and he's panting. um, he you just kind of have to know a person's energy and know when to fight and when to dance with them to get what you need and want that is right. And you have to be able to give in too. Like if there's just no winning it, this is what they want, this is what the studios want, you're going to do it, even though you personally don't think it's going to be the best thing on screen. It's a dance. But I've learned, like, I'm not the person you want to put in a corner because people don't know that I've had 30 years of fight training. And I'm very unexpected because I'm not that big, and I'm not that loud. I'd like for my energy to be really low when I'm around people. I know when to push it in their face and like notice me, blah blah. But I also know when to back it down from my martial arts training. And so, because in Hollywood it can be very in your face, in your face, in your face. And so sometimes when you're in your face, you get, I feel like people just kind of put blinders up to that because they just, another aggressive person there. So sometimes being quiet, you get noticed more. And a good example of that is when I did There Will Be Blood. And Daniel Day-Lewis is one of the most private people you'll ever meet. He's so kind and polite, but he's very quiet. He has an aura of, this is my space. Please let me be in it, because he's a character. He's a method actor, and he does a great character. Even at lunch, he does a great character. When he gets out of his car, in the morning for work, the minute he steps on the ground, he's not Daniel Day-Lewis, he's the actor. Even as he walks into the trailer, he's already working on his dialect, and he'll talk to you in his dialect. He never breaks character, even at lunch. And it's Daniel Day-Lewis. Everybody wants to be around him and talk to him, and he's very focused like this, right? Because he's always like he has to stay on point to keep that accent, that dialect, right, and who he is. And so I was always very, very quiet around him. And he got to where he would always come and sit by me because he knew I wasn't going to bug him. I was going to be safe. And then he started talking to me because he felt like he could, in his character, he never broke character, but he could, it wasn't like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't everybody like, wanting a piece of Daniel Day-Lewis because, and then you get some actors that have big personalities, and your personality has to be big, or you will get walked over and not unnoticed. So you just have to you have to just sense a person's energy and be that and kind of work with that energy and have the understanding of what that will all do. And yes, that I think that has been part of my secret sauce.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Essentially, you're playing the yin to the yang.
Yes.
And yeah, that's fantastic. And you kind of answered the other question that I had, like, what are the transferable skills from any other discipline? Would you, have
Yeah.
you
When I saw
adopted?
that question, I thought that I was going to get into that because I tell people that it's like in interviews and stuff that if it comes to this part of the conversation, I really believe it was one of the everybody has one thing that is a tipping point that might get you a couple leaps ahead,
Yeah.
and I feel like my skills were there, but I feel like that other part was very important too because I pretty much know how to read a room, and I know when to be forward, and I know when not to be, but you always have to back it up with your work. You can't do all that and then not have good work. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I really love how this conversation has been, more about like uh, the mechanics of how to function within the industry as a human, as a creative human being, as opposed to just talking about very specifically the hair, because
Yeah,
that's what really doesn't get talked about
yeah,
all that much. And most of the guests on this show, they've echoed quite, so many similar thoughts as what you just voiced out today. And that's, it gets me thinking that like this there's a common denominator when it comes to people who are successful in their line of work, why they do what they do. And it's not just the talent, there's a lot more that does not get spoken about
yeah,
enough.
yeah. I
So,
think being successful is definitely an extreme discipline. You discipline yourself into being successful. It doesn't come to you, unfortunately. I mean, some people get that lucky, it does, but in general, it doesn't. And discipline, and I've read a lot of books and stuff like that, and I know some of these really successful people. They always say never be late, and so 20 years ago, because I was always one of these people that'd be 10, 15, 20 minutes late, I decided I was never going to be late again. And of course, sometimes I'll be behind an accident and I'm 10 minutes late, but I'm always on time or just a few minutes early. Always.
that's always a good habit to
I
practice.
I want people to know exactly what I'm about, and that first impression of being late is not a good one. And even if I think I'm going to get stuck in back traffic, I'll leave 30 minutes earlier so I can avoid that. But every now and then, like been behind an accident before where the traffic's not moving, the cops are there, blah, blah, and I've been late. But those are circumstances outside of my control. But someone's car is going off. But it's discipline. Do you hear that car going
I
off?
do. Yeah,
Sorry. Hopefully
that's
somebody
okay.
stopped that. I hope it's not mine.
Do you hear the frogs croaking outside?
Yes.
It's raining over here.
Oh,
So we
are
have,
you on the East Coast?
no, I'm actually in Sri Lanka. I'm
Oh, you are.
halfway around the world.
Oh, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
The
Well, I'm very
internet
honored.
makes all things possible.
Yeah. Well, I hope people that hear this will understand because it's not just doing hair for the film business. It's everything.
It
Everything.
is.
Like even in my martial arts training, I never let anybody train harder than me. If people were training 2 hours, I trained 2.5. That's you can't be a number one competitor without being trying the hardest. you
Do you
know.
still practice?
No, I still like to play with my weapons and stuff, but, I'm older. I'm old now, and my
Come
joints
on.
and my hips from all those years of punching and kicking, and no, I like more soft style stuff. I love, I like yoga, I like to ride my bike, I like to take my dog to the park, and I do a lot of yoga stretching and just, I lift a little bit of weights, and at this stage of my game, of my life, I just wanna be healthy. I've done the competitive athlete thing, I've competed in the hair business, in this very, very tough competitive hair, film business. And now I'm to the point where I like to, I think I want to start teaching more and just enjoy my life a little bit more. Slowing down, not feeling like, oh, I gotta be number one. I gotta, I've become more comfortable in my skin, and I feel like I can be proud of myself. So I think that's huge. That's huge. Just and then I can, spend time at the park with my dog and ride my bike and go have a glass of wine, at my favorite, wine bar, and live life a little bit. Because
Really?
when you work in the film business for so many years, when you're working those long brutal hours, you really don't have a life. Your whole life is that film or that project. But the good thing is they're on and off, unless you're doing a real long TV show. So I may work brutally long hours for 3 to 6 months. But then after that, I can choose to take a couple months off, and I can go to Mexico and relax on the beach, or I can just hang out with my dog. I can do that. So, and you almost have to. You have to regenerate. But for many years, I didn't do that. I went back to back to back because people were calling. And I thought, oh my God, I finally made it. All these people are calling me. These producers are calling me. These actors are calling me. And so I didn't. I couldn't say no. But now I can. Now I can. I don't get so excited when like one of the biggest directors in the world calls you. It's like, is there a lot of nights? I always ask that. I got offered this big vampire movie, and my first question was, "Is how many nights?" And they said, "Oh, half the movie." I said, "Oh, I don't think I'm your person." So I can do that now. But many years and many years, because I really believe there is reward with hard work, and hopefully that's when I can take a little bit take a little bit of reward.
100%. Is there anything that, along those lines, is there anything that you probably would want to go and change or have done things differently?
Um, oh, there's so many. You always think that, but you know what? I can't have any regrets because it brought me right here to this place right now talking to you, and I'm in general pretty happy. I just a year and a half ago got out of a 30-year relationship, so I'm single now, and that's a real adjustment after 30 years of being with the same person.
Right.
So, but no, I don't. Everything has taken me to this point, so I'm happy. So I can't. Of course, I would have liked to, make more money, travel more, all this stuff. But I'm not gonna do that to myself. I'm gonna just tell myself I did my best.
I really like this approach. It feels like you've come to a point where you've gone through the entire mill and like you said, you're comfortable in your own skin. Is
Mhm.
this something that comes with age? Do you think some people get to it
I think
faster?
it's. I think it definitely comes with age if you do the work.
Mm,
If you know, if you just let yourself go, you stop caring. And I think you have to have purpose, even when you get older and you're not. When I get out of this business, I mean, I think I'll even. I mean, I could technically retire right now, but um, I I think I'll always stay in the business as long as people will hire me. And I don't think I'll, you know, go off and do those really taxing projects unless, they pay me an ungodly amount of money. But now I'm doing a lot of personal work. Like I'll usually just travel with one actor. I do a lot of that now too.
gotcha.
Even though the project I'm going to be doing next is called the Thunderbolts. It's Marvel's new franchise that's going to replace the Avengers because the
Yeah.
Avengers is no longer. It's the new Avengers basically. It's all the
Okay.
younger, yeah. So I
Yeah, yeah.
just started that, and I was only in it 10 days, and then the strike happened, and they sent us home. So I'm just waiting to get called to go back to that, so that'll be 4 months, um, and
You head
even
into
there's
Georgia?
like a lot of hair and Fast and Furious, those places, but there's so many stunts, and you have to make that those stunt people look like the actors, and that's mostly all done with wigs. Because if their hair's not right, because you don't see their face because they're doing stunts, right? But you see their bodies and what they're wearing the same costume, so you have to make their hair match perfectly. There's a lot of that in those big action movies, a lot of stunt wigs, and sometimes on on some of the Fast and Furious, they're filming in like two different countries at the same time, or three different countries. So you're managing like a whole crew, your crew in Iceland, while you're in Atlanta shooting, because everything's got to match, right? They might be shooting something of my actors, and they need to be able to match my actors. So there's a lot of back and forth of photos and talking and making sure. So
Louis Leterrier was on the show actually in 2021.
who?
Louis Leterrier from Fast X.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he was on the show in 2021.
he was.
Really, he was. Yeah.
I really like him.
What was it like working with him? Because I think this was the first movie that he took over from Justin Lin, and it
Yeah.
was like a director
Well,
replacement as
on the
well.
last one, usually our department had those movies, but on this last one, but with this one, because when they shot in Europe, they didn't, again, everybody's getting cheap. They wanted to hire a local department head. But Michelle Rodriguez requested me, so I was her personal.
Hmm.
So, and she was only there 6 weeks. But the next movie, which I think he might direct of Fast and Furious, is going to be almost all the women. They're going to do a whole like it'll be like uh, Michelle Rodriguez is one of my clients. I've done like 5 or 6 movies with her. We're friends. It'll be Charlize, Helen Mirren, Jordana Brewster, Brie Larson. So we're going to kind of do a woman's.
Oh,
And I think it's
okay.
called. And then they just title it something that so, and I think it's called Letty. Um, but it's going to be all the guys are going to be in it, but the focus is going to be the women.
Nice.
And so I
Have they
think
announced
you
this?
guys
Because
better
I
bring
did not hear about it.
Yeah, well, they've been talking about it for a long time, and then I just saw it in the tabloids that it's in pre-production. So it could
Nice.
take 2 years to write and get together. So
That's gonna be
I'm
interesting.
guessing I'll do that with her. I'm guessing they'll probably shoot it in Europe, so I don't even think they'll let me department head. But I'm hoping she'll ask me. You never know. Some things happen and change. Sometimes they just want to try somebody different. You can't blame them for that.
Yeah, and then I guess like the trick is like learning how not to take it too personally.
Yeah, because I used to, but then I realized sometimes I like to go to a different manicure. Sometimes I like to go to a different hairdresser. It's not like they don't like my work, but sometimes they just like to mix it up. It's like I'm not the only person that does Melissa McCarthy, but I've been doing her pretty consistently for almost 10 years.
Wow.
So, but sometimes she hires somebody else. Like the guy that colors her hair, she's not going to wear a wig because then he can just style it and maintain her color, which is a good choice. It's a smart choice. Um,
Always. You mentioned so. I had a question when you mentioned action sequences and having to dress up the stunt people to resemble the actors, especially with action sequences, maintaining continuity. How much of a nightmare does it become because sometimes you shoot things out of order,
Oh yes,
and
we've shot stunts before the actual scene before, so we were creating the looks on the stunt people with, of course, the actor's approval. But no, it's a lot. That's the continuity is really important. You cannot if you blow continuity, they have to reshoot, and that's hundreds of thousands, and maybe even get into millions of dollars. And you do not want to be that person to have to make that happen. So continuity is very, very, very important, and maintaining it. Lots of photos, lots of notes, breakdown of your script, you know, just all your breakdowns.
yeah. So I guess essentially you kind of maintain daily journals of what you've done on set to kind of help you move on to it the next day. Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you maintain like photo journals of
Yes,
everything that you've done?
yes,
For
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Take photos of everything. Because sometimes you'll shoot something and have to come back 3 months later and pick it up or reshoot it or add to it or. So you have to log everything by scene numbers and day numbers. Because usually, everything that happens in day one, and you had this many scenes day one, you kind of keep that and you know in the binder, and then the I break mine down by days. Like if there's 15 days in a movie, I have 15 breakdowns, and within that is everybody in that one day and all the scenes we shot with them. Because if I see if we're going to go back to something and say, oh, we're shooting day two, scene so and so, then I just pull out the day two and look at the scene and go, oh, this is what we're doing. I keep it really, really simple.
Final question: when you are heading a department and you got like quite a few people working underneath you, how do you try to bring out the best in them? And if there is somebody who's kind of slacking off,
Right.
how do
Well,
you bring them up to speed?
unfortunately, it's business, and if people slack off, they may find that because a lot of times when you have a lot of people, unless they're specifically doing one actor that's working, you, you won't keep all of them. Like if you're doing a 5 day scene with 100 people, and you have people, you have 10 people doing them, everybody will get them ready, and then you might send 5 people home, and 5 people will stay and maintain them. The next day, the people that left late stay, or left early stay late. You alternate them so they each get a fair amount of hours. And if you're really slacking off, you might find yourself not just being released early every day. Unfortunately, I have no choice because it's not personal. It's like if they're not doing the work, the production is counting on me and paying me and giving me this opportunity to make sure that everything is done well. And I can't risk all of that because somebody just doesn't want to step up. And so what I try to do though is I try to be very fair and kind on hours, making sure people get to break properly, spoil them with somebody doing a Starbucks run, um, and being kind to people and treating people like they're equal. Because I'm in the main trailer, of course, and sometimes they're in tents or smaller trailers. I always talk to them. I always thank them. I always make sure that feel like they're being treated as an artist and just with kindness. And if you don't step up to the plate, you're just going to probably find yourself not getting as many hours. And if you're really bad, I just may have to replace you.
Yeah,
So,
perfect. Linda, this has been an amazing conversation, very enlightening as well.
oh, good. I
Thank
hope
you.
you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too. And, I do like to tell my story, because I pretty much started in a small town in the Midwest, a small city in the Midwest, and I worked my way up to being the hair governor in the Academy of Motion Pictures. And it's been a 30-year journey, but I just never let anybody outwork me. And I backed it up with my work.
It's always amazing to hear stories about people who started from the bottom and maybe to the top. And they're what what amazes me the most, and something that I really really love, is that they're humble enough to pass that knowledge on to more people, selflessly. And thank you so much for doing that today.
Oh, you're welcome. Because I really believe if one rises, we all rise. And as I get to the end of my retirement stages of life, I'm probably going to teach more, and hopefully I can share and help people fulfill their dreams. Because when they fulfill their dreams, it becomes a part of me, and brings me great joy.
Your legacy essentially lives on through them.
Yeah. Just as the people that shared with me.
True, exactly. Linda, thank you so much again,
You're
and till next time.
welcome. It's
This is
been
John.
a pleasure. I hope people enjoy your podcast.